Well, hello, model car fans. Welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Revell, and we're continuing on with my 71 Mustang Mach 1 Widebody here that I'm doing a lot of fitting and a lot of work in here and mock-up and everything, which is very tedious because I'm constantly taking this thing apart and putting it together and taking it apart and putting it together and seeing if everything fits. It's very time-consuming, can really mess you a little bit too, but the good news is there's that. See the hood? I didn't have to modify the hood, but the engine is mostly in there. It's sunk down, it's fitted. The brakes even fits, which I wasn't sure that was going to clear the supercharger and everything. So that's in there. And I got pretty much everything on the front and mocked up, and everything seems to be clearing. The rest of it's just going to be minor. There's plenty of room for the radiator and fan shroud, or putting electric fans in there. Now it is kind of raked, and I do have an issue here or there, but it's all worked. But in this video, I'm going to take this thing apart and I'll point out what I did to it to get it in here. Here's the underside. There's the issue right there. See that oil pan? I can't use that oil pan. There's no way, no how, no nothing. One, it's way too far down there, so this thing is, does a wheelie with it. And then the other part of it is this front suspension is a rear steer setup, and I can't use this. It hits the pan. The steering link could just hit the pan. It's all. This has to be a front sump setup. So I gotta come up with a front sump pan, something I can mock up and everything. But that's really not going to be too difficult because now everything is in the way. Now, surprisingly, the transmission pretty much goes right in there. Even the trans mount just about lines up. That was all kind of a surprise. I'm sure I'm going to have to shorten the drive shaft, but where the drive shaft is here, it's going to line up with the rear axle. And then I've got to do something about the exhaust. Now, I did have to seriously cut up both exhaust manifolds and turn them in so that they clear, and because they were hitting both the frame rails, there was no way. And you can see how tight those motor mounts are to the block there, and clear everything. So it's kind of surprising. So other than the oil pan issue, this goes in there and will line up. But other than, the having to convert that to front sump or change it out to a front sump. But you can see how far down that actually hangs from the bell housing as well. So in the real car, it's fine. The setup it's known for. But in this, so let's start taking this apart. And I'll talk about some of the things. Oh, and check out the rear valance there. I talked about how I was going to cut it up and use the exhaust. So there you go. You get an idea of what that's going to look like there. I know it's upside down, but I love those exhaust tips through the stock valance panel. So I seriously notched them out, and that worked out great. And, I'll be able to run them right to the exhaust tips. The exhaust tips are going to go right into them. So that'll look good. So I can keep the exhaust and the mufflers, and up to about this point, the exhaust, it's just going up to the engine I'll have to work on. But yeah, that's all fine and dandy. Compared to what I've been through to get to this point, it's been great. So let's get this out of here. First, I got to pop this out. So let's get a toothpick so I can do it. Okay. The studs come right through here, so it's kind of easier just to push them out with a toothpick here, and I can get that cross member to pop right out. So that comes out. But these motor mounts here, I can't get this motor out with the tranny glued in place. This is temporary glue with the white glue, so it will come apart, but it's really hard to get this out. So I pretty much, when I have time to put this in, the motor's got to be glued in. So here we go. Got that out. This was glued in place, but there's small amount of modification here. You can see where the black is. I had dremeled that out and made it clear the tranny a little bit. It was molded in a little bit, but that's all it took on the firewall there to get that to fit. So that's working really good. I'll get this temporary glue off of here. And then there you can see the motor and everything. So let's get this slid out. Just gotta work it forward a little bit, but swinging the tranny up, and I can get it out this way. So this thing's all bolted together. Whoops, what just fell off? All right, that was the oil filter here, but you know, it was temporarily glued on, but it clears everything. But this oil pan has to come off. But you can see these manifolds, they came straight out, so on both sides. So to do that, I had to cut them and angle them in a little bit and re-glue them, so you can see what I did there to get them in there. That's really the only mod I've done to the motor. I was tempted to try and sand and lower that supercharger just a little bit. This piece was hitting the hood at one time, but then when I got the motor down far enough and the tranny lined up and everything lined up, it was going in there. So that was really not as bad as I was expecting it to be. But you know, now it's just, it does fit, and I got to do a few things. I was also half tempted to grind off this shift boot where the shifter goes in. It was hitting, but I decided to handle that a different way. Actually drilled a hole through the floorboard, it cleared it, it goes right in there, and then the console that's in there covers it up so you can't see anything. So it really lines up right where the shifter actually goes. So you can see the hole for the shifter in the console right there, but and it clearances it and drops right in there. So there's that. Now on the chassis, I did some highlighting with the black marker. I rounded these corners a little bit just to smooth them all out and get them in there, because they were kind of bumping the bell housing and I needed just a tiny bit of clearance there. So I rounded those a little bit. There were some uprights on these mounts right here. I trimmed them down a little bit and got the motor down a little more, but I ended up trimming them to their flat to get the motor to rest completely on the block. And then the only other thing I had to do was I thinned these shock towers so you can see where that black is. I sanded them smooth and just basically took like a 1/16 of an inch. It wasn't much. It was just enough, as all I needed to get the motor to squeeze in between them and clear the valve covers. So it's a really tight fit, but it's fitting in there and it's working really, really good. So really happy with the way that is coming out. And, you know, comparatively, there was not that much that I had to do. Now, the suspension looks a little funny when I was mocking it up and getting it all in there. And then the way the brakes mount to it and the wheels get sucked up. So it's kind of an interesting way of lowering the car, but it'll work. It'll look pretty decent when it's done, but it does seem to be a little bit goofy. And then this air cleaner, I'll be using that, but I'll have to make a duct and figure out where that's going to go. And some of these, you know, hoses and whatnot, but she's getting in there. Everything else is pretty much fitting. I just had to glue the interior together just a little bit. This is all just temporary. I can just pull all of this off. So that's just the white glue. This whole thing is just glued together with white glue so I can see exactly where the interior was going to be. And there's another shot of that hole. But the next thing is, I really want to use these seats. These are out of the 2013 Boss 302 kit. And they mostly go in there. One side pretty much goes in, but they're kind of hitting the console and the floor just a little bit. So I basically just got to clean up the sides, although the seat belt's on that side. So this is really this side and that side. So, and they kind of match the pattern on the back seat too. So that's kind of nice. But I just need to clean them up just a little bit, narrow them. Not much, but just a little bit to get them to sit in there and glue in place. But they look like they're not too tall, and I won't have any issues with that. So they're looking pretty good. And I think those seats will work beautifully in this. So that's going to be the last of my modifications here. Then other than figuring out the oil pan and the exhaust, I got a few things left to do on that. Then it's getting to the point where I can start working on actually painting and body work and figuring out the colors I want to do and get this thing pretty much built. So it's going a little bit smoother than I was expecting, which is kind of nice. But you know, I'm just liking the way some of these things are coming out here and looking. So this is kind of exciting on what it's turning into and what colors and how everything seems to be fitting. And one of the last things I did too was I got an Optima battery, a resin Optima battery to put in it instead of the regular battery. But that's in here as well. So we'll continue working on this. So I appreciate you guys following along and your comments and everything. It's going a little bit smoother than I'm expecting. So, you know, we'll see how the rest of it goes. But you guys, thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and all your comments. And please check the video description below for our sponsors and everything, Hobby Nut Models, which he has the 71 Mustang kit. And support them as they support a lot of us YouTubers, which is really great. And you guys, thanks for your comments, your shares, your likes, and everything. And you guys, you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time.